Lord, the Lord knows that we need this celebration today. We need this celebration in our life. 2 weeks ago when this fast started, it really hit me. It was on Sunday night, August 1st, and we were beginning the Paraklesis services every night for these last 2 weeks. And we alternate the great Paraklesis and the small Paraklesis every night. And in the great Paraklesis, which was that first night, the gospel reading is the one we just heard. This gospel reading which comes to us from Luke chapter 10, and then also a piece at the end from chapter 11. And it really struck me that first day how much we needed to hear that particular gospel reading, how much we needed this 2 weeks of prayer and preparation for this feast day today, and finally how much we need to celebrate today. We've been living for the last year and a half in a pressure cooker. We thought maybe there was some relief coming this summer. We enjoyed a taste of it, but once again the pressure is ratcheting up. The pressure cooker is being tightened up, and the anxiety in the air, the anxiety in the system is elevated even more. And today, the gospel reading comes to us, and Jesus addresses us about anxiety. How appropriate. Let's look at the gospel reading. It starts in Luke 10:38, and this is a well-known gospel reading. Jesus entered a village, and a woman called Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary. Now, this is not the Mary that we're celebrating today. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has abandoned me?" Katalipo. This is a word we're going to hear several times today in the Apolotikion for the Mother of God that we just repeated several times. The main hymn of the feast today, we say, in your Dormition, you did not abandon the world. Katalipo, you didn't forsake the world in your Dormition. No, she has not forsaken us. God has not forsaken us. But Martha, in her serving, and this, brothers and sisters, is a good thing. She welcomed the Lord into her house, probably also his apostles and disciples with him, and immediately she goes about providing hospitality, philotimo. These are things commanded by the scriptures. So what she is doing is very good. She is busying herself to serve the Lord, to serve her guests, to put others before her. This is very good. But as St. Paisios tells us, the modern saint, he says, it's not enough to do good. It's not enough to do good. He says, we have to do good in a good way. It's not enough to do good. We have to do good in a good way. And Martha was doing something good, but she wasn't doing it in a good way. She was focused on the end, on the results, on the goal, and she forgot the process. The process. Doing something in a good way. And so Jesus comes to her and comes to us today and reminds us, let's focus on the process a little bit more. And let's tamp down the anxiety a little bit. So she accuses the Lord. She is not happy with how the Lord is handling affairs. She thinks the Lord should be doing things differently. She's also criticizing her sister in this. She's criticizing both the Lord, the God of the universe, who sustains everything. She doesn't like how he's doing things. He doesn't see things as she does. And she's criticizing her sister. Why? Because in the culture of that time, imagine Jesus comes in. He has some of his apostles and disciples. A crowd always followed him. He comes, he sits down, he starts to teach, using the opportunity of this rest inside to teach. And all the men would have gathered around Jesus to hear his teaching. And the cultural expectation would have been for the women to go and prepare food and to serve Jesus and the men. But what does Mary do? Martha follows what she's supposed to do. But Mary, her sister, she joins the men. And she goes and sits at Jesus' feet with the men. And this is what is ticking Martha off. No one is doing what they're supposed to do. God is not doing what he's supposed to do. He hasn't told Mary and straightened her out. And her sister's not doing what she's supposed to do. She feels abandoned, this word that she gives to the Lord. She says, don't you care that my sister has abandoned me, forsaken me? This is how she feels. Totally alone, totally overwhelmed, over anxious. Can any of us relate to that in these days? Tell her then to help me, she commands the Lord of the universe. But the Lord answered her, and imagine how gentle this is. Martha, Martha. It's gentle, but it's direct. He diagnoses the problem. Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled, tirvazo, which means more like agitated. You are anxious and agitated about many things. One, and actually in the Greek, he doesn't actually say things, about many, and it's left implied what these many things are. One thing, or one, he leaves it open, is needful. Mary has chosen the good portion. Here's the word, portion. Meris, merida, which is still in modern Greek. A merida is a portion of food. And so there's a little play going on here, because while Martha is trying to prepare many dishes to serve the Lord and his apostles and her other guests, these are the many things that she's concerned about, preparing many different plates and many different dishes so that she can be a good host and lay a full table. But Jesus says one portion is needed, one dish is needed, and Mary has chosen the good dish. The dish being served was Jesus' teaching. That was the good dish. That's what was needful. The other things were good. The plates, the dishes that she was going to prepare for them, those are good. But she's not doing it in a good way, and she's not doing it in the right priority. Mary had made the wise decision. She was going to feast on Jesus' word. This was the right decision. Mary has chosen the good dish, which shall not be taken away from her. So she will not be kicked out because she's a woman. She will stay and she will feast on Jesus' word. Brothers and sisters, I feel like I was reading about the effects of stress. The effects of stress on the human body. And the stress response, and I'm not a doctor, but from what I understand, the stress response is a normal part of the functioning of the body. The body, in response to a threat of some kind, releases adrenaline and cortisol, and the body tenses and gets ready, and it enters into what we know as fight or flight mode. This is the result of stress. And in those cases, even in our modern world, we're not only talking about being hunting an animal or being chased by a lion thousands of years ago. If we're on the road and we're driving and someone swerves in front of us, all of a sudden we have a jolt of adrenaline to help us make a decision which way to go. It becomes fight or flight. But the normal course of things is that we aren't always constantly, 24 hours a day in our life, having cars swerve in front of us or having lions chase us. This is not normal, right? This is something that occurs occasionally. But in our society now, we have this 24/7 for the last 18 months. Stress, anxiety. Here are some of the scientific findings about what this stress does long-term to the human body. Depression, anxiety, overeating, alcohol and drug abuse, heart attack, stroke, infertility, diabetes. Do any of these symptoms sound familiar? It's almost like a list of the problems with American society. That we as Americans experience these exact symptoms perhaps more than any other country in the world, despite the fact that we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And yet, we experience all of these conditions, I would argue, at least partly because of the nonstop stress and anxiety that we subject ourselves to. And the Lord comes to us today in his encounter with Martha and says to us, you are anxious and agitated about many things, but one thing is needful. One thing is needful. He says elsewhere in the Sermon on the Mount, he covers a similar theme. He says there in chapter 6 in Matthew, he says, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, nor about your body. And then here's the kicker. He says, and which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his life? What good is anxiety going to do for you? This is what the Lord is asking. Being anxious about something will not add even a single minute to our life here on earth. Not a single minute. It accomplishes, in other words, nothing. Anxiety, according to Jesus, produces and serves no purpose. And in fact, it is harmful to us. It is harmful to us long-term as human beings. We are not meant to have this level of anxiety. And therefore, Jesus tells us again and again. How many times does he say just in this passage in Matthew 6, do not worry, do not worry, do not be anxious about your life, nor about your body. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Brothers and sisters, the Virgin Mary comes to us today and presents an opposite case of Martha. Where Martha was, as it says in James, well, James, in the epistle of James, he actually says, be slow to speak and quick to hear. Be slow to speak and quick to hear. I always thought for years, I was sure that it said be quick to speak and slow to hear. I was sure of that, but I recently double-checked, and it definitely does not say that. It says, be slow to speak and quick to hear. In my experience, I have to be honest with you, my experience over the last several weeks here, I have never in my 14 years of ministry, never experienced the level of anxiety, the level of disrespect, the level of lack of listening, lack of compassion, lack of kindness. We are all in this fight or flight mode, and we are eating each other alive. And I say this in my experience as the priest. As the priest. Most of the time in my experience, people around the priest will at least act like they're nice or gentle. They'll be on their best behavior. But even this has fallen in the last few weeks. I've never seen anything like it. The statistics for pastors here in the U.S. is at an all-time high of pastors leaving the ministry forever. Not just changing churches, which is happening a lot because they have to make unpopular decisions during this time. No, I'm talking about pastors who are called by God have completely abandoned the ministry because of the last 18 months. That's how bad things are right now. The anxiety is too much. It's too much. We think we're doing a good thing. Whatever it is we're excited about on this side or on this side, we think we're doing a good thing. We think we're fighting for something that's worth fighting for. But the question is, are we being like Martha? Are we doing a good thing, but not in a good way? So yes, it's good to be concerned about this. It's good to be concerned about this. But are you doing it and being quick to hear and slow to speak your opinion? To tell other people, like Martha tells Mary, what they should be doing. To tell God what he should be doing. To have this feeling like God has abandoned us. We're left here on our own, all alone. The sky is falling. This is not what faith looks like. Sometimes Sometimes I get the impression that if I or someone else is not in full-on panic mode, pulling my hair out, running around screaming, then it means apparently that I don't care. That's apparently what it means, because you have to be in full-on panic mode in order to demonstrate to other people that you care. But brothers and sisters, that is not faith. What faith looks like is taking something seriously, doing what you're supposed to do, but with the firm conviction that God is in control. God is in control. We have to do, doesn't excuse us from doing what we have to do, but we can do it in a calm way that is reasonable, rational, that's serious, but without anxiety. Why? The Lord is asking us, why have anxiety? It adds nothing. So let's listen to him. Let's listen to the Lord. And let's look at the example of the Panagia. Through her silence, she was slow to speak and quick to hear. And instead of like Martha criticizing everyone, what is this Mary, the Virgin Mary we celebrate today, what does she come to us and say? What does she say when God tells her that she will be a virgin and bear a child? She will risk being stoned to death for adultery. And she says quietly, let it be unto me according to your will. Let it be unto me according to your will. Calmness, no anxiety. Let's be like her today. Let's not be like Martha. Let's be like Mary, the sister of Martha. Sit and listen. Sit at Jesus' feet. Listen to what he has to say. Know that he has not abandoned us, and as we sing in the hymn today, neither has the Virgin Mary. In her Dormition, she has not abandoned or forsaken the world. She is with us. We can have faith in that. Calm trust that God is in control, that the Virgin Mary is interceding for us. Amen.